Hey everyone, Phobos here, coming at you with another build guide, and this time it's going to be for a Poison Blast Rain character that uses the Berserker Ascendancy. And to be honest, I was sort of debating whether or not to bother and post this guide because double dipping may be getting removed in 2.6, and that's pretty much what this build is built upon. But personally, I think it's probably going to take until 3.0. So hopefully we have an extra patch to kind of get that last hurrah in with all the double dipping and abuse the awesomeness one more time. So with that being said, let's get into the build here. So the main two things we need to make this build work are Voltaxic and Snakebite. Now Voltaxic is basically there to just give you your base chaos damage, which you're going to essentially scale with the poison. And how we do this is we just get a ton of lightning damage and we convert 60% of it to chaos with Voltaxic, and then we get Snakebite. And Snakebite is basically what we're using for our poison gem. You don't technically have to use Snakebite, but if you don't use it, then you're going to have to use the poison gem in your links, which is going to take away from your overall damage potential. So how Snakebite works is you basically poison enemies on full frenzy charges, and we only get 3 frenzy charges, so it's relatively easy to hit that threshold and begin to poison things. To generate the charges, we use Blood Rage. You could use Frenzy, it's more annoying. The build does use Vol Pact, so running Blood Rage with Vol Pact, it sounds a little bit sketchy, but you have a pretty reasonable health pool and you have an insane amount of leech thanks to going Berserker, so it's usually not too much of a problem. And there'll be other versions of this build that I'm going to cover once we get into the skill tree that sort of they give you more options and they'll help you like circumnavigate some of those issues if you don't mind getting a little bit less damage. But basically how it works is we stack up to 3 frenzy charges and then we start poisoning. Now the drawback on these gloves is kind of significant because we lose about 30% frenzy charge duration, which means we're running at approximately like 7-second frenzy charge, which isn't terrible, but it can be sort of an issue like when we're trying to transition into a boss room or something like that. So that's why I also run Frenzy as well. Frenzy is there just to quickly get a 3 stacks of Frenzy on the boss, or if you make it to the boss room and your stacks are running out, you can just use 1 attack and regenerate the whole stack, or refresh the whole stack rather. So that's why Frenzy is there. And you can also do a couple other things if you really wanted and you feel like it's too much of a hassle to stack 3 charges up on the boss or something in some situations. You can use the jewels that remove a frenzy charge. And that's going to remove a little bit of damage because not only does it remove the damage that the frenzy charge would have provided, but the gloves do give a small damage boost per charge. But what it's going to allow you to do is have poison at basically 1 frenzy charge. So instead of having to use Frenzy 3 times and stack those charges up, you just pretty much use it 1 time and you're good to go, and you can start doing full damage to the boss right away. So those are just a couple things that you can do, a couple little variations depending on how you want to play. Now let's move into the actual links here, and I'll talk about the damage. So we run Blast Rain, Weapon Ellie, Concentrate effect, which you can swap out with increased AoE, but keep in mind that Conk effect doesn't really seem that bad using it. I was running through maps with it, it seemed kind of fine. I assure you increased AoE is probably more efficient, I would say, but this is one of those builds where I didn't notice a huge difference, and typically you do notice a lot of difference from increased AoE. So faster attacks is always great with elemental scaling. Elemental focus, same thing, and void manipulation. So those links are pretty self-explanatory. That's going to be your optimal setup for sure, and it gives us a pretty decent amount of damage. It gives us 12.5k with the conk effect in. You take it out, we're down to 8k, but that's pretty good blast rain tooltip, and that's not counting the poison at all. It's also not counting any of the frenzy charges. But what it is taking into account is our aura. Obviously using Wrath because it gives us lightning damage, and then we're using the Ice Golem. And the Ice Golem we're using because it gives us some accuracy as well as crit. You can use the lightning golem for the attack speed, and it's probably ultimately a little bit more DPS. But I personally like the crit because it really helps keep your elemental overload procced when you combine it with other crit sources. So I'll go over my gear right now. Basically, you're looking at wed, or you're looking at trying to get a lot of wed on gear, and that's going to be your primary focus. And especially on things like rings, you want to get the wed on the ring, and then you can always craft the added damage. If you can get like a super high added with a good wed, that's even better. But if you can't, it's just much better to craft the added, because you can't craft the wed on a lot of things, only like belt and certain other items. So I have this ring right here with the crafted. This one I just crafted res because it already had the lightning damage on it. Something to note about this ring is the base is crit. Like I said, try and pick up any crit wherever you can, but don't make it like a priority. It's just something you can get extra to help with the consistency of the LE overload. And as you can see on my quiver, I picked up crit as well. And we got a little bit of accuracy. Try and get that where you can again. You make up with a little bit of accuracy from your snake bites. If you're using multiple frenzy charges, if you're just using one, it's barely noticeable at all. But other than that, you're basically just looking for some more wed and resists and life. And on the helm, the best enchant by far would be to get the 75% chance at an extra Blasphemy projectile, because that's going to not only allow you to do more damage, but it's going to allow you to stack the poison faster. In this particular case, I just found this helm and I threw some life on it, and that Immortal Call enchant is just from like a random lab run that I did a while ago. If my resists were better balanced elsewhere, like as you can see I'm using a corrupted chest, it does have some pretty good resistances though, but if I balanced out my resists better on my other gear, I could have afforded to use a helm where I have the Blast Rain enchant, but it was just looking like it was going to be a super pain in the ass to craft one. So the damage enchant for Blast Rain is also fine. The thing is though is that it doesn't double dip because it's increased Blast Rain damage and not just regular damage. So you're only going to be getting that extra impact on the initial hit, which while it isn't terrible, it's not going to scale your poison, and that's what the majority of this build is about. And one more thing before we go into the skill tree is we should talk about the Wither Totem. So the Wither Totem basically just increases the amount of chaos damage that the enemy is going to take. So it's going to increase the amount of poison damage, since poison is chaos. And it's just really helpful for doing an obscene amount of damage to bosses. So what you want to run is Spell Totem, Wither, faster casting, and area of effect, increased area of effect. You don't really need the area of effect, so you can run this on a 3-link just fine. And you basically just throw the totem down, and you let it just spam stacks on the boss as you AoE it down with Blast Rain. And let's get into the actual build itself here. Okay, so the Ascendancy we picked, again, is Berserker. And we get some notable nodes here. Pain Reaver is insane, helps you with your leech. You don't have to worry about mana leech at all. Your life leech is fantastic as well. And then the main reason we go Berserker though is for the Aspect of Carnage. And Aspect of Carnage is just insane with this build because it's 40% more damage that applies in the initial hit, and it applies to the poison damage you're doing. So it's a pretty huge, insane DPS increase. And you'll notice just a lot of damage coming from that node. Crave of the Slaughter is pretty good, and these nodes aren't bad either, just missing some of the physical damage with attacks from them. You don't really benefit as much from that. If you're going to get the Uber points, you'd come up and get Cloaked in Savagery. Probably recommend removing Vol Pact if you're going to do an Uber run. Personally, I just haven't bothered to do it on this character yet because it's kind of just a quick little experiment character. Wasn't really meant to be super serious. And speaking on that topic, I haven't really heavily tested it out yet. I'll include a playthrough from like a red map or something that I'll add at the end of this video probably just to show you how it plays. But I haven't really tested this out against super endgame content. It was more just something to have some fun with and to try new ways to abuse the poison mechanics. So getting into the actual skill tree though, one of the notable jewels here right away you see is fluid motion. basically just converting some of the strength to dex, so we can use big ticket dex items like Voltaxic, because you need like 212 dex to do that. And otherwise, pretty much just health, wed, area damage, because the area double dips and gives you poison damage as well as initial hit. Elemental overload, a very important node. More area, arcing blows, and we pick up some chaos damage over here as well as going down to Volpact. For the other jewels, you're pretty much just looking at damage that double dips. So area, projectile, chaos, or just flat damage. Ideally, I like to get health on my jewels as well, but this one was kind of just too good to pass up with all the damage. So there's one with health. This one would be one with health. I didn't bother to put another jewel in though, as I had just leveled. And the other thing I want to talk about is the potency of will nodes here. Skill duration is very good for poison because it increases the duration that the poison can stay on the boss, so you're getting more stacks and essentially more ticks. So this is a really big DPS boost. And that's pretty much it for the primary skill tree. But now I wanted to begin talking about some secondary options because, like I said, I kind of made this character for fun. I had an idea, and then I was looking at it more in depth, and I realized there were a couple other ways you can do it that might be more effective. So I'm going to go over the changes that I would make to this build right now, and I'll include the actual skill trees in the description as well. So the first change I'd make would be staying Berserker, but changing the pathing a little bit. So I would path up to Elemental Overload, but then all of this, pretty much leading down to this area, I would just completely remove and respec, and I would go down this way. I'd split off at this dex node, and I'd come down and get Art of the Gladiator, pick up all this projectile damage. Art of the Gladiator is insane because it allows you to ignore all the movement penalties from armor, so that's amazing. Come down here, get the projectile damage and the accuracy and some projectile speed, get the Golem's Blood node for the health, and then I would come straight down here and get Point Blank, which is insane damage because it's 50% more, or up to 50% more, which you're probably going to be experiencing pretty often because this build is not really meant to be like a super range build. It's not like a split arrow off-screen build or anything where this node would actually probably lose you a lot of damage. You're pretty much going to be on top of mobs as you kill them. So this is a great node for that. And then they come up over here, get the finesse node, path up through here, get ballistic mastery, finish off some of these projectile damage nodes, and get Volpact. So why would this build be superior, do I think? Well, because you're pretty much just giving up a little bit of health. And to be honest, I could have more health than I do now anyways, so we could probably get around the same amount of health. My gear is sort of unoptimized. So you'd probably end up with, in fairly optimized gear, around 6.5k health, but a ton more damage because you're getting the point blank, and you're getting a ton of projectile damage, which double dips on your initial hit and your poison. So you're scaling essentially both, and it's scaling all your initial hit damage, whereas like the chaos damage over here is only scaling 60% of your initial hit damage as well as the poison. So projectile speed is just projectile damage rather is just pretty much king when it comes to this build, and going to the southern portion of the tree would allow you to acquire a lot more of that. Now the last thing that would increase the damage by a lot is you'd be able to pick up this exceptional performance cluster, and this adds another like 40% duration, I think it is, or 45% duration, which is absolutely insane. Essentially doubles the amount of duration you can get from the tree, and your poison is going to be up for essentially 100% extra time than it normally would because you're going to have both of these clusters. So you're going to just be able to get a lot more stacks and do a lot more damage that way. So this is definitely the build to go if you're looking for more damage, and like I said, I'll post the link below. Now, another build that you can go if you're interested in the more quality of life approach is you could go Ranger and get the Raider Ascendancy. And the whole point of the Raider is essentially that you're going to forego the need to keep your power charges up with some weird mechanic like Blood Rage or Frenzy. So you're not going to have to use Frenzy on the boss, because whenever you hit a boss or a yellow mob, you're going to be generating your charges very fast, and you're not going to have to use Blood Rage, which is going to essentially be draining your HP in between packs and stuff while you have all packed. So some people just think it'll probably feel a bit safer, and they'll just like the way it plays better. There's not as much maintenance. It'll definitely do less damage overall, I'd argue, because not all of the stuff in the Ranger Ascendancy is basically scaling your poison. Like your attack damage isn't really scaling your poison, and the WED you're going to pick up if you get Uber Lab with that Ascendancy is not scaling your poison. So the more damage from the frenzy charges will scale your poison though, and you're going to innately probably end up getting more frenzy charges with that build. The build is going to look somewhat similar to the secondary Marauder build I was showing, where you basically just start in the Ranger and you acquire these nodes in Ballistic Mastery and then work your way down. But you can also pick up some extra frenzy charges around here, and because you have extra duration from the Raider, as well as you can pile on the duration nodes as you're getting the frenzy charges, you're probably looking at least like a 13 to 15 second frenzy charges, even considering you have the gloves here, which do a 10% reduced per frenzy charge, because you're just getting so much extra duration from other sources. So that's another build that you can do, and it's just a more like quality of life. I would put that build in between the current build I have here and the other version of this build, because the Ranger version would do, I'd say, average damage and have like average health, whereas this version that I'm currently have here has average damage and more health, and the other version of this Berserker build does insane damage, but with average health or something like that. So ultimately, I think the Berserker one's still better, but the Ranger one is definitely less maintenance. And I think that's probably the best way to summarize that. And I think that's pretty much it. If there's any questions or concerns, just feel to let me know in the comments, and I'll answer any questions you guys have or anything like that. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.